we're back again with another upgrade for the ECX AMP MTs. We're going to start with one car and see how it works. We've got the hot racing aluminum bell crank steering saver for any of the ECX two-wheel drive vehicles. Comes with, pre-assembled, is the actual bell crank assembly. This is your steering servo saver. You can see, obviously, if you crash, this will move. It's adjustable. You just turn the thumb screw here to adjust how much tension there is on that. There's pockets for the bearings, which comes with it. There's a little bag of hardware, including the bearings. And then we'll need a couple of pieces from the existing steering bell crank and servo saver on the car. So we'll get into that next. So to get in here, we need to take this piece off, basically the whole front end assembly, because we need to replace this piece in here. So to get the front end off, we need to take the two screws out of the bumper to access screws underneath there. And then there's 4 screws here that need to come off, and that'll give us access to our steering linkage. So again, once you get that bumper off, you need to take out these 4 flathead screws. Note that when you take these apart, the flathead screws are on the bottom. There's these 4 flathead screws, and there's 2 flathead screws that hold the bumper on. The other are panhead or round head screws. So then the last thing you need to do is make sure you pop the steering arm off of your bell crank there. Then you can just remove the whole front end. So now we have access to the bell crank and servo saver. So we're going to replace this whole part with the aluminum piece. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to take these off. These are basically just snapped onto the little ball socket there, so we'll pop those off. And then we're going to save this piece here. I think we have hardware to replace these screws, but we need that piece from what it looks like. And then the other thing we need to take note of is which hole these are screwed into. There's 2 holes on here. There's 2 holes on here. So obviously this is screwed into this part. So we're going to end up screwing that into these parts. So I'm going to mark that. Okay, so then another step we got to do, we take the screw out of here. And then underneath, we have to take this screw out. This one can stay. So we'll take this one out, and then we should have the steering linkage totally removed. Okay, and the next step is to get this prepped. We put the bearings here. There's already one in there. I'm going to put one in here. They're relatively loose fit, so don't lose them as you're working. On the top side, there's a bearing that goes in here, and then a bearing that goes in here. Then there's these 2 metal sleeves. Oops, I just lost a bearing. The long one goes in here, and then the short one will go in. The short sleeve will go in this side. Next step is we got to remove these 2 from the steering linkage, and then this is a piece that snaps onto the servo horn. So we'll take these off. I'm going to clean them up a little bit. They're a little dirty. And then we'll put those into the hot racing unit. All right, one more thing to be aware of. When you try to unscrew that screw, the whole top part rotates too. They're connected through the inside, so just you need to take a pair of pliers, grab onto that ring, and then you can unscrew it and everything will stay in place to let you get that crossbar off. Okay, so these are all cleaned up and ready to get mounted into our holes. There's a little mark on each one so I know where it goes. And there's our cross piece. So before you put your screws in, because we're going metal screws into metal, basically, you need to use a thread lock. So this is the medium strength or blue thread lock. There's different brands out there, but this is a Permatex. All right, so we have our thread lock, we have our screw. We're just going to put a little bit of thread lock compound on our screw. Oop, that's a lot. So don't need quite that much, but let's wipe a little bit of that off. This one we're going to screw into here. Okay, that one's screwed in. We'll tighten that one down after we get the other two in. So again, I'm going to put the thread lock on the threads and we'll get that tightened in. Okay, after some playing around trying to figure this assembly out, this long sleeve, there are the two sleeves that came with the hot racing assembly. So the long sleeve is actually threaded internally. So the short one we'll put on the bottom, and then the long one that comes with it is actually too long for our AMP MT. It might be usable in a different ECX. There's a couple different parts. But what I did was I actually took the screw out of the existing bell crank, which you can see is significantly shorter. I'm going to use the shorter screw to attach it through here. Okay, because that long screw is too long and goes all the way to the bottom, which on the AMP MT doesn't work. So I had to take that other screw from the existing bell crank. Before I thread lock these into place, I did a test fit. I'm going to put the steering servo on and make sure everything connects correctly. Again, this screw came from the other bell crank. So same screw went in the same spot here as it does here. And that threads all the way through into this piece. And then this screw actually came from the hot racing kit. And then again, this screw I took off of the AMP MT because the screw that came with the hot racing assembly was too long. So that fits in there nice, everything tightens up, and we got nice clean movement. Okay, so I rough fit everything. Looks like everything lines up well. I haven't snapped any of the arms on yet, but looks like everything is where it's supposed to be. So I'm gonna thread lock all the screws, tighten it all up again, and then put it all back together. So here we are, it's all assembled. Everything turns, it's snug. Well, not really snug. I mean, it's tight enough that it stays together, but loose enough that everything moves easily. That's tight, so that holds everything in position there. And then I just use this screw to adjust the tension of this piece. Everything is connected there, and it looks like we're ready to put it back on the car. There we go, the hot racing bell crank with integrated steering servo saver is mounted and all put together. Everything locked in as it should. Everything looks good. So we did have some extra parts, a couple of screws and a nut. But again, this is made for all ECX two-wheel drive vehicles, so it's going to fit differently on the different cars. Obviously, we have the ECX AMP MT, so that's what we ended up with. So you can see from the existing bell crank with the integrated steering servo saver that I ended up having to use, actually most of the screws came off of this, but it all mounted up nice and neat inside, so I'm happy with that. And just for cost comparison, a new ECX component for this is, I don't know, I think it's $7 to $10 from Horizon Hobby. And the hot racing set is about $30 to $35 depending on where you get it. I got this on Amazon. You can get it from Horizon Hobby, lots of different places. So $7 to $10 for a new one from Horizon, or your more expensive hot racing set. Depends on how much you drive it and where you drive it and how. The other thing the hot racing bell crank is supposed to do is fix that wobbling issue when you back up. I think everybody with an ECX two-wheel drive vehicle that uses this knows that when you back up, your wheels wobble all over. With this, it should keep that tightened down a lot firmer and then be able to actually back up in a straight line. Test number one, we're going to back up and see how straight it stays.